Hello and welcome to this episode 7 of the Infinite Improvement Podcast with myself, Coach Andres, and my daughter Isla, which is the reason that we were on hiatus for a couple weeks. Because I'm a dad now. All right, that's her little cameo, and now she can go to sleep. All right. So this week we're going to talk about. You're fine. This week, we're going to talk about some of the best advice we ever got from teammates. So I have a little bit of a story to tell, and Coach Andres as well. We'll see where the conversation takes us from there. So as I said, I'll go first. So we have to go way back for my story. It's about actually more than 10 years ago, because I believe I was 17 at the time. And I was playing in Greece. I had been playing, in a men's division for a year or two at that time, and doing really, really well. So I thought I was kind of like hot stuff. I was starting playing a lot of games. I had been in the newspaper a couple times for like team of the week, player of the week, all of this stuff. And we got promoted. So I was feeling myself. I was feeling like really, really good. When I came back for preseason, a couple weeks in, we signed this phenomenal player who has played, for some really big teams in Greece. We were playing fourth division at the time. This player came in, was instantly the best player on the team easily. And we had some really great players. It was a bit of a wake up call for all of us. I'm going to tell, before I get to the advice, I'm going to tell a little bit of a story that kind of paints the picture of what kind of guy this player was. So in preseason, I know a lot of teams do, a lot of fitness tests and a lot of fitness work and stuff, which, obviously the players are not a big fan of. Even at a good level, players always complain about fitness. You could go playing college, professional teams, whatever. They're always going to be complaining about having to do fitness tests, having to run. We had gotten in the habit whenever we would run around the field of cutting the corners just a little bit. As a team, and no one said anything. But we didn't kind of like hold ourselves accountable. So we would run, we would have to like run a lap in a set amount of time. We would cut the corners a little bit, make it a little bit easier for ourselves. And this player showed up to the training session, and obviously, he hadn't been in preseason for a minute, so we were all wondering what he was going to do. And our first thing that we did with him was a fitness thing, and he refused to cut the corners. By the time we had gone one lap around, everyone could see like the disgust on his face that he was running around all the corner flags, and he was the only one. By the time we ran our fourth lap, no one was cutting the corners anymore. And mind you, this player had been here an hour, not even an hour, right? He had been there for like 30 minutes before the session started, and then this, the warm up, and then into the fitness stuff. This was his first day. And he was already having an impact on us. And it was huge for us because, we had just gotten promoted from a lower division. And this player came in, and not only was he an incredible player, but the impact he had on the squad was unbelievable. And as far as obviously a lot of advice, when we talk about advice, it's like someone telling you something. A lot of the time it's advice you get just from watching someone. Now, this player did give me some advice as well, after because we developed a bit of a like a good relationship, because I was one of the younger players, he was one of the older players, so he helped me out with with some stuff, and one thing he said to me that has kind of stuck with me, was after I had a little bit of a bad game, and he could tell that I was feeling a little bit down. I don't think I said anything, but in the locker room after the game, I was just like feeling a little bit sorry for myself. Head was down, and he said something very, very simple that has stuck with me. Nobody cares. Work harder. And I know it's very, very simple, but the basically his whole mindset was that as I said, I was feeling pretty good about myself when this player came in. I had no idea, I thought I was set. I thought I was working hard enough. I was, doing well enough. I was, but I would to get to the level of when you see players who are truly great, or like real players who have played at an incredibly high level, it's just completely different. And every once in a while you need that wake up call to say, look, you might feel good about where you are right now, but you're not where you could be. You need to wake up and work a little bit harder, especially for young players. Because obviously we work with a lot of young players, and we work with some young players who are a little bit cocky, sometimes. And I think it's good.
Are we allowed to say names?
They know who they
then
are.
tag them on the story.
Yeah. But especially for young players, I think you're in one of two camps. Either you're very, very cocky, or maybe you don't believe in yourself enough. And either way, for the players who are feel good about the player they are, it's good to be confident, but at the same time, if you're playing in club or in high school or even in college or something, you have no idea what the next level is like. And every time you take a step up, it's a bigger step than the last step you took. So going from club to playing academy is a big step, but going from academy to playing semi-professional, or going from semi-professional to playing professional, those steps get bigger and bigger. And that's something I don't think a lot of players kind of realize. You have to work harder. Nobody cares about the bad game you had. Nobody cares about how good of a player you think you are. Nobody cares about, if you think you're working hard enough. All that matters is, what you're actually doing, how good you actually are. And, the number one thing you have to do is just work harder.
So I had a question, because I think I've seen it a lot in several environments, whether when I was playing or when I'm now that I'm coaching. There's this excitement at the beginning of anything that's preseason or the beginning of the season, and everybody will go around the flag and nobody will cut corners, because they're so excited for getting back and playing together, and everybody wants to work hard together. But somewhere along the lines, it becomes normal, that we get the privilege. It's a privilege, but it becomes normal that we get to train, that we get to work hard, that we get to come together and improve. And we start to take a step into the corner flag. And the first few weeks may be a step. The next
couple
month,
more steps,
it might be two steps in, and but what is it? Because I don't think that the player necessarily likes the sport less. What is it about the team, or maybe an individual, or maybe you can speak from your was it because you saw people cutting, then you started cutting, or you're like, you know what, nothing wrong with a little corner cut? What is it that makes that happen throughout the season at some point?
Yeah, I think there's kind of like two ways I want to take this. But first off, like the more you do anything, right, the less I don't want to say the less special, but it is a little bit like the less special it becomes, right? Like if you're training every day, you know, those sessions to you, they seem to matter a little bit less and a
Mhm.
little bit less the more you
Do you
do
think
it.
it's
So
it's it's the more you do it, or maybe a lack of understanding of why you're doing it? Or not lack of understanding, like maybe you're doing it, you haven't even figured out that you're doing it for maybe the wrong reasons. I just get the impression that like when you do something that you really enjoy and love, like it's difficult to cut corners because it's almost like um bringing bringing the capacity in which I can enjoy this down.
yeah. Yeah, I
So
mean,
is it that we is it a why thing, or is it once things become repetitive, then they become less important?
like I think it's just like human nature to kind of think that something
Okay.
is less important if you do it a lot. And
Uh-huh.
to be like, obviously, you know, no one is taking their warm up like easy if they're playing in the Champions
Hmm.
League final. But if you're playing Sunday League, you know, like you don't get the chance to play in a Champions League final every day. I remember I had a conversation a while ago with someone talking about how uh, like when a big team plays a small team, so say like Real Madrid is playing some third division team in the cup or something, those third division players, they are going to be so hyped for that game. Like they're going to be so ready. They're going to take their preparation so seriously. And at Real Madrid,
Yeah.
like obviously you'd expect that they're professionals, that like, but they have, you know, 60 games a year, and this isn't the most important one. Like it's
Why
it's
not?
hard.
Just because of
Well, because
um the hierarchies in tournaments,
yeah, I
or
mean like that like you know, they've they'll play against a better team next week, but like the team they're playing right now, they have one chance to play against Real Madrid. And like, you know,
yeah,
that like of course they're going to be like, this is like a once in a
yeah,
lifetime opportunity. And when something is a once in a lifetime opportunity, that first day when you show up for
yeah,
preseason, or you know, like you know, the first you know, month or 2 months that you're in a relationship, you're gonna try really really hard, and then you know it can start to go away a little bit. And I think like having a little bit of a wake up call every once in a while is incredibly important. I also think that seeing other people, you said this, but seeing other people do something becomes a lot easier to do it. So like I've talked a lot about when you're in a, you know, when you're in a team environment that maybe isn't that great, or you look around and your teammates aren't working very hard, um, you have to step up and make a difference. So that one player deciding, I'm not going to cut corners, even though it was
yeah,
his first day. And I know
yeah.
like at 17, if I had rocked up to a new team and people had been cutting corners, I would have cut corners as well, because I just that
Hmm.
like I would not have been confident enough to do that.
Hmm.
But you know, this guy was like, he didn't care what we thought. You know,
Hmm.
he was you know, uh yeah, I think like if you see other people doing something, it makes it a lot easier to do it. And that can be a
Hmm.
positive or a negative, right? If you see players hanging out
Hmm.
after training to, you know, do a little bit of extra work, if you see players getting there early to do a little bit of extra work, you will naturally start to do that as well. You know, it's in soccer, you're almost never in an environment where it's just you. Obviously, you do your individual training.
Yeah,
Obviously, you do your stuff at home. But it's you know, at team training and games, it's always, you know, a group of people together. And that can be, you know, that can be a good thing, that can be a bad thing. It's all about how people feed off each other. You know, does one person
yeah,
step up, you know, and decide to make the difference? Because a lot of the
yeah,
time, I think like even though it is a team sport, like it's the individuals make that like that first step to make a difference. Whether you're playing in a
sure.
game and it's just someone like you're losing and it's someone that little bit of magic, or you're in a training session, things aren't going very well. One player's like, I'm going to start working hard, then another player, then another player, then another player.
Yep.
The negativity spreads, positivity does exactly the same thing. So,
Mm.
you have to be positive, and you have to give, as a coach, we're always, giving our teams wake up calls. I'm sure,
Mm.
whenever the
Yeah.
session isn't going so well, you have to, and it's easy as a coach to get frustrated in that situation. And instead of giving a wake up call, you get frustrated and you yell, or you just like, you're like, I don't even know what to do.
I don't know.
But yeah.
No, yeah, I remember, and like I hadn't done this in a while. This past Monday, I think, or Wednesday. Oh, sixes. They're such a good team, but um they like to fool around a lot. And I
Yeah.
think because they're so talented, sometimes and so they were just going through the motions, and it turned into almost pickup. Um, and I had to stop it and put us on the line. And um, obviously, I whenever I make team players run as a team, I like to let them know that it's the lack of concentration and focus that they're expressing. Therefore, when we lack concentration and focus in the game, we're more likely to lose the ball. And that means when you don't have the ball, you're going to be running. So it's not a punishment. It's just what I perceive we should work on more, because what it looks like is we're going to have the ball less on the weekend. So let's run, because that's what we're going to be seeing more. So it is I think up to the coach setting expectations. But I think there's some really interesting takeaways from that story you bring up. One, I feel that you have to bring your own limitations when you go into any environment, whether it's new, whether it's old. And it's up to you whether you cut the corner or you don't cut the corner. You're going to be influenced and once you leave the session, you check off your limitations, and you can go back and say, I gave it my all. But then the second thing, which I think is, it's even, I haven't necessarily fully thought about, was this this need for newness in your career. And I think when we get comfortable in a team that we enjoy the players, we enjoy the coach, it's almost like we don't want to leave that environment. Um, and I wonder if you should, every 3 or 4 years, put yourself in situations where you're in a new team, in a new country, in a new project. It doesn't mean you leave the sport. It's just a new project. I look at perhaps the best teams in the world. I think Barcelona lacked the ups and downs, was because they were so dependent on this Barca team that won so much, and they were trying to hold on to that as opposed to recreate, which we've talked about. I think Manchester City with Pep, I think he tries his best to not make long contracts, and if he stays, then you're gonna notice that the team is gonna be new faces. And if not, he's going to be the one leaving. And it's nothing that, I don't think is anything personal with the players, with the coaches. I think it's what you're saying, that when things become repetitive, I think we lower the expectations. Somebody said to me the other day, uh, we make it seem as if being alive is normal. And because we wake up every day and we feel like it's just, I was supposed to wake up today. You set the alarm as if you're gonna get
Yeah.
up tomorrow. You plan the next 2 months as if you're gonna be alive, and it's because up until today, it's been for me 28 years of waking up. So I think that's normal. But is this idea that, how do you find a way to incorporate rhythms in which you incorporate newness, which actually helps you stay away from the possibility of cutting corners? Because I think you're right. I think our human mind, when it sees everything so many times, it just becomes very normal, and you lose some passion, you lose some creativity, inspiration. So I think just that story alone just makes us reimagine, how long should I be in a club for? How long should I be with this team? I know I love it right now, but if I don't know when is the right time to leave, I might mess up my entire career. And those are huge takeaways from those stories.
Yeah, and I think like I remember I used to play for a club when I was pretty little, and they used to switch the coaches every year, like each
Mm,
team, like obviously like say you had like the 10-year-olds with a certain coach. Next year they would be 11, they would be with a different coach. And it wasn't
mm,
like the coach would always be with the 11-year-olds. They would just like mix and match the coaches and figure it out. And sometimes you'd be with a coach when you were 5, and then you'd be with them again when you were 10, and then you'd have them
yeah,
again when you were like 15 or something, like
yeah,
um because they thought like every coach. And I'm probably on the fence on this. Like I don't necessarily think switching coaches every year
mm,
is the best thing. But I think you should work with different coaches. You should play on different teams, especially as a young
yeah,
player. When you're a little bit older and you've matured, maybe you've figured out how to add some variety into your rhythm or your habits and stuff.
yeah,
But like the idea, I kind of agree with that. Like, you need to be in different environments. Like when an environment gets comfortable, you're probably not going to grow as much anymore in that environment. Things need to change. And, like a certain coach, like I am a different coach than I was 5 years ago. So if I had had a group five
yeah,
years ago, maybe they would have grown with me, and that's okay too. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I definitely think that like, change
yeah.
is important.
It keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
It keeps you asking yourself, why am I here? Like when it doesn't look the same, but you're still doing the same sport. Um, it doesn't get dictated by necessarily the faces. And I think like at least here in the US with club teams, like I I do think that there needs to be um, transitions in parts of their development with regards to their leaders. But I also think that if let's say the club as a whole doesn't have some sort of structure that, for example, like Christo, you're gonna have them from this age to this age, and then you're gonna help them understand this, and then Tyler's gonna take them from here to here. Now you know where you're headed with. You don't need to teach them all of soccer because
Yeah.
Tyler will teach them the next part of their development, as opposed to it's a new coach and they're going to try to teach him everything they know about
Yeah.
soccer, and then Tyler gets him, and then Tyler's going to teach him everything he knows about soccer, and now it just it counteracts the actual fluidity of the development. So it's not just switch the coaches, I would say, because I agree with you, like you should um it should be an intentional
Yeah, I think they
strategy
they kind of
behind,
did it
you
like
know.
randomly, and I think like you can
Yeah,
probably think about it a little bit more than that. But like
yeah,
the kind of like the initial idea, someone had like an idea, oh, change is good, like that I can agree with. The one other thing I wanted to bring up is that this player was and still is, because we still talk, is 10 years older than me. And
oh wow,
something that is not very present in the States is, I know when you're high school, maybe you're 14, maybe you play with a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old. Fair enough. But mostly players play with players they're around their own age, maybe a year, maybe 2 years older or younger. And it's one of the things I hate the most about soccer in the United States is that players don't play with older players.
yeah,
When I was 15, 16, 17, like I wasn't playing with kids anymore. I was playing with 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 35-year-olds. And I improved so much more from 15 to 16, 16 to 17 than I had in the previous years.
yeah,
I think that playing with older players is super beneficial. So like for players in the States, if you can find a way to play with older players, I think that's incredibly important, even if it's just pickup. And the lessons that you
yeah,
learn from older players, like, players can learn, you can learn from your coach, but it's always a little bit different. when you're learning from a teammate, which is why I wanted the question to be a lesson that you learned from a teammate rather than from a coach. Because
Yeah.
sometimes like coaches are there to teach you. So you're like, my coach taught me this. Sometimes what a player teaches you can stand out a little bit more because it's not always something you expect to learn from your peers. Even though, you expect to learn from your coach, but like I've learned as much as a coach. I learn from the players that I coach. Every time I do a session, someone does something that I didn't expect and that I have to like look twice at and be like, did they mean to do that? What was the thought behind that? Even if they didn't mean to do that, that was pretty impressive, or, whatever it is. So I think it's just something to think about.
It is a limitation because everywhere else in the world, players are being developed playing against and with people of all ages. Here, I think because of school, you are more restricted. Not that over there you see like U10s playing in Europe. You say U10s playing with I don't know, U19s. That's not what we're talking about. But there comes an age which there is this there's no limit to how old you can be. And I don't think you see that enough here. And yeah, I think that's something that made me a better player too, like playing pickup in a neighborhood where the field was next to the train station, and you had people that have moved from South America to the US because life wasn't very sustainable in South America. They're here, they're working their regular 9 to 5. They get off the train station at 6. And then they go, and the field is right outside of the station. But these people have played in first division, second division, in Peru, in Colombia, in Argentina, but it just wasn't sustainable for their family. And so now you're playing pickup with these people. And I was like 14, and I'll be in teams with these guys, and you'll know when being younger, you'll find the people the older ones that are maybe envious that there's a good young player. And so they might come and push you a little bit more, but you also find the older ones that enjoy seeing a really talented young player, and then they'll protect you. And so you go into this environment, in this new jungle, in which you identify people that are 10, even 15 years older than you, and some of them are there to protect you. Some of them are there to come in and push your buttons. And that's so real to soccer, to the world, and you're doing it with soccer. So I think players should, especially the ones that play club, I think they just limit themselves to that club environment, and I think their capacity to be at the highest level possible is being restricted because they're only playing against players their age or younger. So it's a good point you make.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Like I'm a huge fan of playing with older players for like, if you want to develop in your 15, 16, you need to just find a pickup game you can play in, a decent level pickup game you can play in once a week. Trust me, it'll do absolute wonders for you.
That's I was listening to Cruyff's last interview or like conference before he passed away, and he was talking about like part of the reason why in the States is more difficult to create that environment is because everywhere you go, there's basketball courts. And that's why we're so good at basketball, because you have basketball pickup games built up in any street, in any city, no age limit, but we don't have small soccer, whether futsal or outdoor street soccer. And so because when you go outside, you see a basketball field as opposed to a soccer field, we're already decreasing. So I think Cruyff's foundation was to create these fields all over the world just to increase the amount of people go outside and start playing.
You know what I see when I see a basketball court?
Street soccer.
I see a street soccer court. Yeah.
Yeah. There's only one around here actually where I live that actually has the cages for the soccer, and it doesn't have the basketball nets.
Nice.
Whatever they're called. Oops.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like, but imagine a 10-year-old or a group of 10-year-olds
If they go to the
get there
basketball
with
court, like why
any type of
wouldn't,
ball,
yeah,
and then they see that there's a hoop, so I'm gonna
they're
start
gonna shoot.
hooping
Yeah, exactly.
because
Yeah.
that's what the field is telling me to do.
Yeah. Whereas like in another country, they'll have little nets or there'll be nothing. And it's easier to play
Nothing, and then
soccer when there's
it's
nothing
easier to because you don't
than it
create
is
the
to,
hoop.
yeah, you can't make a hoop to shoot in. You just
Yeah, and then
imagine it's there. Every shot goes in.
you have two players stand like
Yeah.
this on the, on the
Yeah. All right.
but yeah,
Well,
that's it.
yeah, I think that wraps up my story. So we can go right into yours.
My story. Um, so when I was playing at UMass Lowell, um, with the NCAA rules and all these restrictions, there was a player that came from Croatia, and he had to sit out for 1 year for whatever reason, whether it was he had played or his age, I can't remember, or school, whatever. His first year he had to sit out. He could train, but he couldn't compete in games. His name is Ivan, and we called him Abra. And actually, it was your story reminded, because the first time I met him, it was at a fitness test, and everybody worked really hard for the fitness test, and he tried his best, but that, like, honestly, that fitness test, if you prepare that, it was
What
going to be
was
really
it? A
hard.
beep test or
No, it was on a track. I guess like it used to be a military test.
nice.
um, so it was like a ladder. So you would run I think it was a 800, 600, 400, 200, and then you go right back up. But the times were crazy. Um, so yeah, so he hadn't even seen the thing, so he just jumped in and tried to do it, and he was dying. Um, and so that was the first time that he stood out, because he was just not aware of what was going on. Like, he didn't expect this thing to, like, he came to play soccer wearing a track.
Yeah.
What's going on? And then so then we after that evening we had a scrimmage between each other. So normally the first day of preseason would be the fitness test, and then at night we would play, just put two teams together and play. And once he got on the field, this guy could play, man. He could, and anywhere you put him, he was an attacking player, but you would see him all over the field. And it was almost like, I'm not about that fitness test life, but I'm gonna show you why I'm here. And so he did his thing, and then now everybody's asking, like, is he gonna play? Is he not gonna play? Like, what's going on? Can we get him on the field? But the reality was we couldn't. But that was just more context as to his who he was, or why he couldn't play, and when this scenario happened, which was the advice that he gave us, or at least I took. There was this rule. We so fast forward to, like, season ended, and we were training indoors. And there was this rule that had been created, and I don't think it was by the coaches. It was like, when you miss a shot, an easy sitter, you go and do 10 push-ups. And so any player, normally the attackers, they would miss, and then just boom, start doing the 10 push-ups. And then Abra missed one of the easiest goals I've ever seen. And then everybody's waiting for him to, like, go down, and then he just goes and comes back and just looks for his position, and he starts playing again. And then nobody said anything, because it wasn't something that was, like, fully implemented, but it was something that we knew that it's
Yeah.
something you do.
Just like in the
And so
culture.
everybody's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's like, what's going on? And then he missed again, and then he didn't do anything. And then part of us is like, who does he think he is? And then most of the forwards are like, what the hell? Like when we miss, we go down, because that's not something that, like, in the middle of the game, if we miss that, that's very important. Um, and then I went to Abra. I think when he came, I was one of the captains, and then I was like, hey, Abra, like, any reason why you don't do the push-ups? And he answered with a question, which I sometimes questions can eliminate every correct answer. I mean, every incorrect answer, and just leave you almost weaponless. So he said, Andres, like, why would I ever punish myself for something that I didn't mean to do? And then when I thought about it, I was like, that's true. Why is everybody punishing themselves in a moment in which they're doing everything possible? It's not like you came and you were in front of the net and you intentionally missed the goal so that your team loses. And I think that advice is something that I try my best to take to all of my players when they come off the field, and they're like, coach, I'm sorry for doing this, coach, I should have had a better game. And it's like, wait, hold on, did you come with the intention of giving me a bad game or giving us a bad game? Did you come with the intention to give that pass away? And there's this guilt that, like, what can I do to outweigh this? Nothing. You didn't mean to do it. Move on from it. And I think it relieves a lot of pressure. It didn't speak that he didn't like to work hard, because he would come, find his position and defend. And so I think the advice would be, anytime that we come short of any expectation, maybe ask yourself, did I intend did I intentionally try to do this wrong? And if the answer is no, then don't necessarily look to punish yourself in any sort of way. And yeah, so this guy, I think, aside from being a soccer player, he's a friend that I try to talk to him at least once a week, because his wisdom, not just on the field but as a human, helps you realign how you treat yourself. And I think you work with a lot of players with confidence. I think part of the barrier is how you see yourself. And going back to that advice from your teammate, nobody cares. Just detach from all of that. He didn't care if anybody cared that he didn't do the push-ups. He just cared that he knew that he didn't intend to miss, and that settled his inner being. So yeah, so I think that's the one advice
Yeah.
that I take with myself.
Yeah, that I love that so much, because like obviously like most people aren't like physically punishing themselves for a miss or a mistake on the field,
Yeah.
or whatever, but a lot of the players that I work with, and like obviously the ones that I work with who struggle with confidence, or having like anxiety when they're playing or something, they do punish themselves just with the thoughts that they have, thoughts of like, I'm not a good player. Like, how could I have missed that? Like all of these thoughts and, things that I can relate with, because I had a lot of issues with confidence and stuff, which is why I talk about it so much. Like people do punish themselves so much for like simple mistakes. You misplace a pass in the first like 5 minutes of a game, and that's all you're thinking about for the next for the next
90
while.
minutes,
Yeah.
85.
Yeah, exactly. And it's it's crazy. So they're not like, they might not be getting down and doing the push-ups, but they're not moving on either. I always like, whenever I see a player like make a mistake, and then like I like the frustration, but at the same time, like, be frustrated while you're like moving on. Like you should be straight into the next thing. Like you miss, it's like, it's a goal kick. You're set up for a goal kick.
Yeah.
That miss is gone. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. You're straight into the next thing. I'm not sure if I said this before, but I remember I had have you ever heard that quote? Like if someone stole, like if you had, hold on one sec. I gotta do some quick math.
Oh
If you
yes,
have
I think I
14,
know.
yeah,
Albra reminds me of that
yeah.
all the time.
If you had, $1,440 and someone stole one, like, would you care?
Yeah.
Like, and you have, if someone ruins 1 minute of your day, you have 1,440 minutes left. But like, it's the same thing. Like I had someone tell me that for soccer, it was like, if you had $90 and someone stole one, would you care? Obviously you can see where I'm going with this. Like if you play bad for the first minute of a game, why do you let that ruin the other 89 minutes? Like nothing's changed. And that's something I talk about all the time, but I love that, like the confidence to not punish yourself for mistakes is like that's confidence, because anyone can be confident. You score a goal
when things are going right.
Yeah, you're confident. Like, that feeling of putting the ball in the back of the net, and then like all of a sudden, like you're on top of the world. Like you could not be happier in that moment. But like flip that around, like if you can feel like if you can eliminate you can channel that because that's in your mind. Like, I know, like, you physically put the ball in the net, but like, you're able to put the ball in the net. So
Yeah,
why can't you feel like that all the time? Why can't you play with that confidence? Because I remember I
yeah,
thrived on confidence. Like, when I would score one goal, I would score like five. And then there'd be games where I
yeah,
wouldn't score at all. So like, I score one goal and I'd be buzzing to get back,
yeah.
get the next chance, and I'd score that, and I'd be buzzing to get the next chance. But if I missed the first chance, I would be
Mm,
I would be playing scared. I would be, maybe
mm,
not looking for the chances in the same way, maybe not looking for the ball in the same way. And you know, the yeah, you need that confidence. Anyone can be confident when you just scored a goal. You need that
yeah.
confidence when you've
I
just missed a sitter.
yeah. It's interesting to think about if the reason we are so hard on ourselves when we don't put the ball in the back of the net is because we have um, overstimulated the moments when we do put the ball in the back of the net. And so when we give that so much value, then the complete opposite is almost like is the worst thing that could ever happen. So for me, it's going to be a challenge with the '06 team because um, they're such emotional players. They're such very joyful player. I wouldn't say they're very joyful players, but I think that same energy of joy, whatever the opposite may come about,
Yeah.
will happen when things go wrong. And so like when we went to a team outing, they were even like, Coach, when we scored, this is how we're gonna celebrate. Everybody runs to the corner like a real goal, and I'm like, yeah, like actually, I never had a team that has even considered that. But I also wonder if creating something too much in that direction may make them fight against each other when one of them misses the shot. So it's a nice challenge to have because I don't like the opposite either. I don't like everybody just being cold
Yeah.
when they score and being completely cold um, when they miss. But I guess you go back to why are we doing this, and it's for those moments of joy. And how can we live from the moments of joy and not let the other ones influence our overall experience. Um, so I think it's part of our desire to do things well, and we got to understand the players when even they punish themselves or they're looking down, like see it as an expression of like I'm just trying my best to show you that I care, even though we already know they care. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
I
yeah,
think
I
it's
would say go ahead.
No, I think it's like, it's interesting because it's tough because like, I want my players celebrating their goals, and I want them to be frustrated when
Mhm.
they concede or when they make a
Yes.
mistake. Like, I love seeing a player show me that they care by making a mistake, and like, I can see the frustration on their face. Um, but I don't want it. I think like that it's why, like, that story that you told is so good, because I think it's when it gets, like, you can be frustrated, you can feel bad,
Mhm.
like, we're human, we all feel bad
Yeah.
sometimes, but when it gets to punishing yourself, that's where the
Yeah.
line probably is,
Yeah.
right?
It's probably how you allocate that energy. And for some reason we feel that the best way to show the people around us that we shouldn't have missed is the push-ups or put your head down or yell or cuss. Um, but use that same energy. It's not saying don't feel that. Use that same energy to find your position, to make sure that you remember what your line of confrontation is. And that is probably going to show us more that oh, he really didn't enjoy missing that because he just went and found the next moment or the next role that's going to get us the ball back. And I think it's on us coaches to remind them of that. That hey, the best expression of your frustration when you mess up um, is getting onto the next role because the team needs you. And we'll try to get you a chance again. But yeah, I agree because you shouldn't also neglect that feeling. That feeling can help the team of you don't want to remove accountability. It's just how do we allocate this nasty energy, and at the same time, how do we allocate this really good energy when we do things right. And I think if you find the right balance, I think your team for the whole game will probably have a competitive advantage because they'll be together for longer periods of time, emotionally, tactically, technically. And I think the coach has to do a little bit less. Not that we want to coach less, but from the sideline, by the time my information gets onto the field, that's a minute or two, or maybe the other team hears it. But if we can find a way to decrease the amount of interventions because of these hiccups, I think we're building a team. I think you build a team that can almost coach themselves on game day. I'll come in and during the week and I'll try my best to change things, but
Yeah.
I think it's beneficial overall.
Yeah, I think like it is like it's tough to strike a balance because you feel like however happy you feel when you score a goal, that's how sad you'll be when you concede one or something. But like
Yeah.
that's like you can find ways to channel the positive emotions in the right way and to like channel the negative emotions, anger, frustration. You can use these things
Yeah.
in a positive way for sure.
Yeah.
Especially when you're, when you're competing and you don't want it to be like, like I was saying, like if you live on having confidence, you're basically like you walk into every game and the first 5 minutes decide everything. You're basically flipping a coin. Will you play well for the first 5 minutes every time you step on the field? And if it comes up tails, you're not playing well. It shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't have to rely on, luck. You should learn how to move on from things, from the negative things and channel those emotions in a positive way. But and then also, if things go well, then, you can feed off that a little bit. And, just realize that things won't always go well. And you need to believe in yourself enough to get through that either way.
Yeah. And it's a great challenge for any coach to find a way to implement those ideas. Because as a player, you're more on the emotional side and on top of the tactics, on top of the technique, on top of the soccer
I
stuff.
don't know. I've
It's
seen
a
some
game of
pretty
emotion.
emotional coaches.
Oh, I mean,
No, I'm just kidding. No, I know. It's yeah.
In
I can
practice,
only
if you put TikTok on me for the whole practice, I don't know. I will just leave it at that.
I can only imagine how passionate you were as a player, though.
Oh my God. I have this new have you heard of the Whoop?
Oh yeah,
Whoop
yeah,
band?
yeah,
Yeah. So like when I'm coaching, it thinks I'm on a full workout.
yeah.
And I'm just walking around yelling and all these things. So I actually have a friend that also has one, and then I'm like, yo, like it's a mentor of mine. I'm like, I'm doing a bit better with training sessions, but I need to be much better in games. It's like I'm gonna break the Whoop
Yeah.
because of how stressed I go in, and it might be tougher because I feel the same things, but now I'm competing against another team, and I also don't want to I don't want to influence too much with my words because I don't want to throw them off. So I think maybe keeping my emotions in make it that my Whoop is like going crazy. But yeah, it starts with us because we're coaching because we felt some type of way about the game at one point. So
Do you think you've
just an emotional
said?
journey.
Do you think you've said whoop enough to get us a sponsor? Um, no, I just I 100% agree. I think like one of the toughest things for me as a coach is like maybe 5 years ago. I think I probably talked a lot more, and it's actually been more like
In sessions or in games?
Yeah, in both.
Both. Okay.
And it's been a lot more about like cutting out the stuff that the players don't need to hear. Because if I look back, a lot of it I was talking for me, which is, I was still figuring out how to be a good coach. But like the more I've coached, the less I talk in my sessions, the more I, I'll let players figure things out for themselves, and I'll be there to help, when I can. And then when I am talking to them, I'll try to keep it short because, I know for me as a player, maybe it wasn't the same for everyone, but man, my coaches talked a lot and I didn't listen to most of it.
Yeah. I think the more you have to talk to explain something, it just you probably understand it less. You don't know how to explain it in a simple manner, which is more go look at yourself and how can I say this entire drill in one sentence, and go from there.
And speaking of that, let's do, now that we've talked for an hour, let's do our three takeaway points.
Takeaways.
Yeah. So I think I'll go first. I think that just like in general, like you go to a session expecting to learn from your coach. I think that you should go to a session expecting to learn from everyone involved in that session. So from your teammates, from yourself, and from your coach, of course. But I think like a lot of players, like they, especially players who are maybe stronger players, think that like they can't learn from anything from anyone not as good as them. But you know, you can learn, trust me, you can learn something from every single player you ever play with if you take the time to learn the lesson they want to teach you. And they're not even trying to teach it to you, but if you watch them, if you play with them, if you train with them, they will teach you something. You know, and some lessons are better than others, but at least be open to learning those lessons, because I think it is very, very important.
Yeah, it's good. I would say one of the most underrated skills a player could ever have that may even make the difference between professional and amateur is channel your emotions. Simple as that. Just channel your emotions, the good ones and the bad ones. If you've gotten to this point on the podcast, you know exactly what we've talked about with regards to that. So that would be my point. Channel your emotions.
Yeah, that's so important. And then
one third one.
You have a third one?
I have one. I
Go
have
for
a third
it.
one. Yeah. Because everywhere I go, I gotta bring Abra with me. And I would say the third one is ask yourself, did I intentionally mean to do this wrong? And if you intentionally didn't mean to miss the goal, then reevaluate why you're on that team. But if you didn't, then that gives you a whole other set of approaches to fix that are less harmful. So I would say fight your battles with questions. Did I intentionally mean to harm? And then go from there.
No, that's awesome. And I think perfect way to round out episode 7 of the Infinite Improvement Podcast. So thanks for listening. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon podcasts. So yeah. And we'll be back next week. We'll do more consistently now that I have you know, my I know we missed like 4 weeks, 5 weeks. But yeah, even though I'm going on a couple hours of sleep a night, we'll make it happen. All right. So thanks for listening, and see you next time. Peace.
All right. See you guys.